The doorbell chimed, shattering my peaceful morning like a hammer through glass. I knew who it was before I even reached the door. Only one person had the audacity to show up unannounced at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Patricia," I said, forcing a smile as I opened the door. What a surprise. My mother-in-law breezed past me, her designer perfume leaving a cloying trail in her wake. "Evelyn, dear, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop by to see how you're settling into your new role." The way she said role made it sound like a dirty word. I bit back a retort, reminding myself that I'd chosen this. I'd left my career to be a full-time housewife, to support Brian's growing business. It was my decision, even if Patricia couldn't fathom why anyone would make such a choice. "Coffee?" I offered, already moving towards the kitchen. "Oh, I suppose," Patricia said, her eyes scanning the living room with barely concealed judgment. "If you have time, I know how busy you must be, keeping house." I gritted my teeth as I prepared the coffee. When I returned, Patricia was running a finger along the mantelpiece, inspecting it for dust. "You know, Evelyn," she began, accepting the mug I offered, "I couldn't help but notice the state of Brian's shirts when he visited last week. Perhaps I could show you a better way to iron them?" "Brian's shirts are fine," I said, my voice tight. "He's never complained." Patricia clucked her tongue. "Oh, he wouldn't, would he? Such a good boy, always so considerate. But a wife should anticipate her husband's needs, don't you think?" I took a deep breath, counting to 10 in my head. "Patricia, I appreciate your concern, but Brian and I are doing just fine. We have our own way of doing things." "I'm sure you do," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I just worry, you see. It's such a big adjustment, going from a career woman to this." She gestured vaguely at the room. "This is my choice," I said firmly, "and Brian supports me." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Does he? I wonder if he truly understands what he's given up. A wife who contributes financially, who has her own life outside the home. It's a lot to ask a man to shoulder all that responsibility." My hands clenched around my coffee mug. "Brian and I made this decision together. We're partners." "Of course, dear," Patricia said, patting my knee patronizingly. "I'm sure you believe that. Now why don't you show me what you've done with the guest room? I had some ideas about redecorating." I stood up abruptly. "Actually, Patricia, I have plans this morning. Perhaps we could do this another time?" She looked affronted. "Plans? What could be more important than family?" "I have a life outside of this house," I said, moving towards the door. "And right now, I need to get ready to live it." Patricia gathered her things, her lips pursed in disapproval. "Well, I can see I'm not wanted. I'll just have to tell Brian how inhospitable you were when he gets home." As soon as she was gone, I sagged against the closed door, exhaustion washing over me. That's when I noticed it. My journal, sitting on the side table, slightly askew from where I'd left it. With trembling hands, I picked it up, flipping to the most recent entry. There, in the margin, was a small pencil mark that hadn't been there before. My blood ran cold as realization dawned. Patricia had read my journal, my private thoughts about my struggles, adjusting to this new life, my fears and insecurities. She knew everything. In that moment, as anger and violation washed over me, I knew things would never be the same. Patricia had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. This meant war. I stormed out of the house, my mind reeling from Patricia's invasion of privacy. The crisp morning air did little to cool my anger as I marched down the sidewalk, no destination in mind. That's when I heard a friendly voice call out, "Evelyn, what's got you in such a tizzy this fine morning?" I turned to see June, my elderly neighbor, tending to her rose bushes, her weathered face creased with concern as she took in my flustered state. "Oh, June," I sighed, feeling the fight drain out of me. "It's my mother-in-law. She's just impossible." June patted the bench beside her. "Come, sit. Tell old June all about it." I hesitated for a moment, then relented. As I settled next to her, the words tumbled out. Patricia's surprise visit, her condescending remarks, and the shocking discovery that she'd read my private journal. June listened intently, her eyes narrowing as I recounted the morning's events. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. "That woman's got some nerve," she said, shaking her head. "Reminds me of my own mother-in-law, God rest her soul. She was a real piece of work, too." "How did you handle it?" I asked, desperate for any advice. June chuckled. "Not well at first, But I learned something important over the years. You've got to set boundaries, and you've got to stick to them. Boundaries? The concept seemed foreign when it came to Patricia. Absolutely, June nodded firmly. You need to have a frank conversation with her. Let her know in no uncertain terms that her behavior is unacceptable. The thought of confronting Patricia made my stomach churn. I don't know if I can do that, June. She's Brian's mother, and I don't want to cause problems in the family. June's eyes softened. Honey, she's the one causing problems. You have every right to protect your home and your peace of mind. As we talked, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. June's wisdom, born from years of experience, gave me strength I didn't know I had. You know, June said, a mischievous glint in her eye, my Harold always said the best defense is a good offense. Maybe it's time you took the fight to Patricia. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, June leaned in conspiratorially, you could always give her a taste of her own medicine. Show up at her house unannounced, offer some unsolicited advice about her housekeeping. We both burst into laughter at the thought. As our giggles subsided, I felt a newfound resolve settling over me. You're right, June, I said, straightening my shoulders. I need to stand up for myself. I can't let Patricia walk all over me anymore. June squeezed my hand. That's the spirit, dear. Remember, you're not just standing up for yourself. You're standing up for your marriage, for your future family. As I walked home, buoyed by June's support, I began formulating a plan. I'd confront Patricia, set clear boundaries, and make it abundantly clear that her behavior wouldn't be tolerated any longer. But when I reached my front door, I froze. There, taped to the wood, was a note in Patricia's elegant script. Evelyn, I've taken the liberty of rearranging your linen closet. You'll find it's much more efficient now. We'll discuss your homemaking skills further at Sunday dinner. Patricia. My hands shook as I ripped the note from the door. How dare she enter my home without permission? Again. In that moment, all my carefully laid plans evaporated. This wasn't just about setting boundaries anymore. This was war. I stormed into the house, grabbed my phone, and dialed Brian's number. As it rang, I paced the living room, my free hand clenched into a fist. Hello? Brian's voice came through, tinged with concern. He must have sensed my mood even through the phone. Brian, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury, we need to talk about your mother, now. The tension in the room was palpable as I faced Patricia across the dining table. Brian sat beside me, his presence a comforting anchor in the storm that was about to break. Patricia, I began, my voice steadier than I felt, we need to talk about boundaries. Her eyebrows arched. Boundaries? I'm not sure I understand, dear. I took a deep breath. You've been overstepping, entering our home without permission, rearranging our things, and... I paused, steeling myself, reading my private journal. Patricia's face flushed, but she didn't deny it. I was only trying to help. As a mother, I have a right to ensure my son's home is well managed. No, you don't, Brian interjected, his voice firm. Mom, Evelyn and I are adults. We don't need your supervision. Patricia's eyes widened, shock evident on her face. Brian, surely you can't mean that. I've always had your best interests at heart. Your intentions don't justify your actions, I said. We're setting clear boundaries now. No more unannounced visits, no more helping without our permission, and absolutely no invading our privacy. Patricia's shock morphed into indignation. This is preposterous. I've done nothing but try to guide you both. Evelyn, you're the one causing a rift in this family with your modern notions and inability to keep a proper home. I felt Brian tense beside me, but I squeezed his hand, silently asking him to let me handle this. Patricia, this isn't about my homemaking skills or your guidance. It's about respect. We're asking you to respect our autonomy as a couple. For a moment, Patricia was silent, her eyes darting between Brian and me. Then her face hardened. I see. If that's how you feel, perhaps it's best if I limit my involvement in your lives. Mom, Brian started, but Patricia cut him off with a wave of her hand. No. I understand perfectly. You've made your choice clear. She stood, gathering her purse. But mark my words, Evelyn. This family needs stability, tradition. The only way you'll ever truly be part of it is if you give Brian a child, a son, preferably. Then maybe you'll understand the importance of family. Her words hit me like a slap. I stood up, anger coursing through me. How dare you? But Patricia was already heading for the door. She paused at the threshold, turning back with a vindictive smile. I'll be waiting for that announcement. Until then, enjoy your independence. The door slammed behind her, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. Brian wrapped his arms around me as I sagged against him. I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I had no idea she'd react like that. I shook my head, fighting back tears. It's not your fault. But Brian, what she said about having a child. He pulled back, looking into my eyes. Hey, don't let her get to you. We'll have children when we're ready, not because my mother demands it. I nodded, but Patricia's words had planted a seed of doubt. What if she was right? What if I could never truly be part of this family without producing an heir? As if reading my thoughts, Brian cupped my face in his hands. You are my family, Evelyn. You're all I need. I managed a weak smile, but inside, my mind was racing. Despite our victory in setting boundaries, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Patricia's parting words echoed in my head, a sinister prophecy that threatened to overshadow our future. That night, as Brian slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my hand resting on my flat stomach. The thought that had been niggling at the back of my mind all evening finally crystallized into a startling realization. I was late, very late. My heart raced as I contemplated the possibility. Could I be pregnant? And if I was, how would this change things with Patricia? Would it bring peace to our family, or would it only give her more ammunition to interfere in our lives? As dawn broke, I made a decision. I would find out for sure, but I wouldn't tell Brian. Not yet. This was my secret to keep, at least until I figured out what it meant for our future. The pregnancy test trembled in my hands, 2 pink lines staring back at me. I was right. I was pregnant. A whirlwind of emotions swept through me. Joy, fear, excitement, and dread all tangled together in a complicated knot. I took a deep breath, steadying myself against the bathroom sink. This was what we wanted, wasn't it? A family of our own. But Patricia's words echoed in my mind, casting a shadow over what should have been a moment of pure happiness. When I told Brian that evening, his face lit up with unbridled joy. He swept me into his arms, spinning me around our kitchen. We're going to be parents, he exclaimed, his eyes shining with tears. I laughed, letting his excitement wash over me, pushing my worries aside for the moment. Yes, we are. As the weeks passed, my belly grew, and so did Patricia's interference. It started small, a book on proper prenatal care left on our doorstep, unsolicited advice about my diet slipped into conversation during Sunday dinners, but it quickly escalated. One afternoon, I came home to find Patricia in our nursery, directing a team of painters. What's going on here? I demanded, my hands instinctively cradling my swollen belly. Patricia turned, a serene smile on her face. Oh, Evelyn, I'm just helping you get the nursery ready. Blue is the perfect color for a boy's room, don't you think? I felt the blood drain from my face. We don't know the gender yet, Patricia, and even if we did, we didn't ask for your help. Her smile faltered. But surely you want a boy, to carry on the family name? We want a healthy baby, I said firmly. Boy or girl? Patricia's eyes narrowed. You're being naive, Evelyn. A son is what this family needs. Brian needs an heir. I opened my mouth to argue, but a sharp pain in my abdomen made me gasp. Patricia was at my side in an instant, her face a mask of concern. Are you all right? Should I call the doctor? I waved her off, taking deep breaths until the pain subsided. I'm fine, it's just stress. Patricia's expression softened. You see, this is why you need my help. You're clearly overwhelmed. I straightened up, fixing her with a hard stare. What I need is for you to respect our boundaries. Please leave, Patricia. Now. For a moment, I thought she might argue, but she simply pursed her lips and gathered her things. As she passed me, she paused. I'm only trying to help, Evelyn. One day, you'll understand. After she left, I sank onto the couch, my hands shaking. The stress of dealing with Patricia was taking its toll, and I knew it wasn't good for the baby. That night, I confided in Brian about my concerns. He listened, his face growing more troubled with each word. I had no idea it had gotten this bad, he said, running a hand through his hair. I'll talk to her, make her understand. No, I interrupted. I don't think that's enough anymore, Brian. Your mother, she's not going to change, and I can't keep dealing with this stress. It's not good for me or the baby. Brian took my hands in his. What are you saying? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to propose. I think I should go stay with my mother for the rest of the pregnancy. His eyes widened in shock. Evelyn, no, this is our home, our family. We can't let my mother drive you away. It's not about letting her win, I explained. It's about doing what's best for our child. I need peace, Brian. I need to be able to enjoy this pregnancy without constantly looking over my shoulder. Brian was quiet for a long moment, his internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, he nodded slowly. If that's what you need, then that's what we'll do. But Evelyn, promise me this is temporary. Promise me you'll come back. I leaned in, pressing my forehead to his. I promise. This is our home, our family. I'm just taking a step back to protect it. As we sat there, holding each other, I felt a mix of relief and sadness wash over me. This wasn't how I imagined my pregnancy would be, but I knew in my heart it was the right decision. For now, at least, I would find sanctuary away from Patricia's overbearing presence. But a nagging voice in the back of my mind wondered, would this really solve our problems or just delay the inevitable confrontation? The gentle hum of my mother's sewing machine filled the quiet afternoon as I sat by the window, absently rubbing my swollen belly. It had been 3 weeks since I'd moved in with her, and the peace I'd found here was a balm to my frayed nerves. My phone buzzed, interrupting my reverie. Another message from Patricia. I hesitated before opening it, bracing myself for what I might find. Evelyn, how could you abandon your home like this? Brian needs you. Are you so selfish that you'd put your own comfort above your family's needs? I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to calm the anger rising within me. This wasn't the first message of its kind, and I doubted it would be the last. Everything okay, honey? My mother asked, pausing her work. I forced a smile. Just Patricia again. Nothing I can't handle. But as the days passed, Patricia's messages became more frequent and more vicious. Each one chipped away at my resolve, planting seeds of doubt in my mind. A real wife would be by her husband's side. I always knew you weren't cut out for this family. That child deserves better than a mother who runs away from her responsibilities. One evening, as I sat on the porch swing, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Brian. Hey, love. How are you feeling? Mom's been asking about you. She seems pretty upset that you're not here. Maybe we should reconsider this arrangement. My heart sank. Even here, hundreds of miles away, Patricia's influence was seeping into our lives, manipulating Brian's thoughts. I was about to respond when another message from Patricia came through. This one was different. Attached was a photo of our nursery, completely redecorated in garish shades of blue and green. Since you're not here to prepare for my grandson, I took the liberty of doing it myself. I hope you appreciate all I'm doing for this family in your absence. Something inside me snapped. The constant barrage of guilt-tripping messages, the manipulation of Brian, and now this blatant disregard for our wishes. It was too much. With shaking hands, I pulled up Patricia's contact information. My finger hovered over the block button as a war raged within me. Was this too drastic? Would it cause irreparable damage to our family? But then I felt a strong kick from my baby, as if urging me on. In that moment, clarity washed over me. This wasn't just about me anymore. I had to protect my child from Patricia's toxic influence. I pressed block. A wave of relief washed over me, followed quickly by a pang of guilt. I dialed Brian's number, knowing I owed him an explanation. Evelyn, is everything okay? His voice was laced with concern. Brian, I just blocked your mother's number, I said, my voice trembling slightly. There was a long pause on the other end. Oh, he finally said. I see. I'm sorry, but I had to. The constant messages, the guilt-tripping, the redecorating of the nursery without our permission, it's too much. I need to focus on our baby now, not on managing your mother's feelings. I heard Brian sigh heavily. I understand. I'm sorry it came to this. I should have done more to shield you from her. It's not your fault, I assured him. But Brian, we need to talk about what happens after the baby is born. I won't bring our child into an environment where Patricia feels she can overstep our boundaries at will. You're right, Brian said, his voice firm. When you come home, things will be different. I promise. As we talked, making plans for our return and discussing how to handle Patricia going forward, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt truly hopeful about our future. That night, as I lay in bed, my hands resting protectively over my belly, I made a silent vow to my unborn child. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I would always put their well-being first. Patricia might be family by marriage, but this little one was flesh of my flesh, and I would move heaven and earth to give them the peaceful, loving home they deserved. The first cry of my newborn daughter filled the delivery room, and in that moment, all the pain and exhaustion melted away. I looked up at Brian, tears streaming down his face as he cut the umbilical cord. Our little Emily had arrived, perfect and beautiful. As I cradled her in my arms, a sense of peace washed over me. The struggles with Patricia seemed a distant memory. This was our new beginning. 3 days later, we were ready to go home. As Brian pulled into our driveway, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Home, our sanctuary, but also the battleground where we'd faced so many conflicts with Patricia. "Ready?" Brian asked, squeezing my hand. I nodded, clutching Emily close to my chest as we walked to the front door. The moment we stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The air felt different, stale somehow. "Brian," I whispered, "did you leave any windows open?" He shook his head, his brow furrowing as he looked around. That's when I noticed it, the empty spaces where my things used to be. My grandmother's antique vase gone from the mantel. The painting we'd bought on our honeymoon missing from the wall. "What the hell?" Brian muttered, moving quickly through the house. I followed him, my heart pounding. As we entered our bedroom, I gasped. My jewelry box was gone, along with the vintage dresser it had sat on. Even my clothes were missing from the closet. "This can't be happening," I said, my voice trembling. "We were robbed?" Brian's face had turned ashen. "No," he said quietly. "Look." He pointed to a note on the bed. With shaking hands, I picked it up, recognizing the elegant script immediately. "Evelyn and Brian, I've taken the liberty of clearing out some of the clutter in your home. You'll find it's much more suitable for raising a child now. I've sold the unnecessary items. Consider it a lesson in responsibility and prioritizing what truly matters in life. I look forward to meeting my grandchild. Love, Patricia." The paper crumpled in my fist as a wave of fury washed over me. She sold my things? She broke into our home and sold my possessions? Brian was already on the phone, pacing the room. "Mom, what have you done?" "No, you had no right. This is theft, Mom. Do you understand that?" As he argued with Patricia, I sank onto the bed, clutching Emily to my chest. She began to fuss, sensing my distress. I tried to soothe her, but my own emotions were spiraling out of control. This was supposed to be our homecoming, our fresh start. Instead, Patricia had violated our space, our trust in the most egregious way possible. Brian ended the call, his face a mask of anger and disbelief. "She says she did it for us, to teach us about responsibility. She won't tell me where she sold the items." I stood up, my body shaking with rage. "This ends now, Brian. I won't let her terrorize us anymore. I won't let her anywhere near Emily." "Evelyn." "No," I cut him off. "No more excuses, no more second chances. We need to confront her, face to face, and this time there will be consequences." Brian nodded slowly, his jaw set. "You're right, this has gone too far. We'll go to her house right now." As we prepared to leave, I looked down at Emily, peacefully asleep in her carrier. My resolve strengthened. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting our daughter, our family. We drove to Patricia's house in tense silence. As we pulled up, I saw her peering out the window, a smug smile on her face. She thought she'd won, that we'd come crawling back, grateful for her interference. How wrong she was. I stepped out of the car, Emily in one arm, my other hand clenched in a fist. This was it, the moment of reckoning. As we approached the front door, I knew that whatever happened next would change our family forever. And I was ready for it. The door swung open, and there stood Patricia, her face a mask of false concern. "Oh, you're here. I was so worried when you didn't call. Come in, let me see my granddaughter." I clutched Emily tighter to my chest, my body tensing. "Not so fast, Patricia. We need to talk about what you've done." Her smile faltered for a moment before returning, brittle and forced. "What I've done? I've only been helping, dear. You'll see." "Helping?" Brian's voice was low and dangerous. "You call breaking into our home and selling our possessions helping?" Patricia's eyes widened in feigned innocence. "Breaking in? Don't be ridiculous, Brian. I have a key, and I was merely decluttering for the baby's sake." I felt my anger rising, threatening to boil over. "Those weren't your things to declutter, Patricia. You had no right." "I had every right." she snapped, her facade cracking. I'm family. I'm trying to teach you responsibility, to show you what really matters. You should be thanking me. Brian stepped forward, placing himself between Patricia and me. Mom, what you did was illegal. It was a violation of our privacy and our trust. We want our things back. Now. Patricia's face hardened. I'm afraid that's not possible. I've already sold most of it. The room seemed to spin around me. All those precious memories gone. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Then you'll pay us back, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Every penny. Patricia laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. With what money? Everything I had went into raising Brian, into supporting this family. You owe me, if anything. Brian's shoulders tensed. No, Mom, we don't owe you anything. Not anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia's eyes darted between us, realization slowly dawning on her face. What are you saying? She whispered. Brian took a deep breath. We're saying that this ends now. You're no longer welcome in our home. You're no longer a part of our lives. Patricia stumbled back as if she'd been struck. You can't mean that. I'm your mother. A mother respects boundaries, I said. A mother supports her children, not terrorizes them. You've shown us that you can't be trusted, Patricia. We won't let you hurt our family anymore. Tears welled up in Patricia's eyes, but I steeled myself against them. How many times had she used those tears to manipulate us? Brian, she pleaded, reaching for her son. You can't do this. I'm all alone. I need you. For a moment, I saw Brian waver. This was his mother, after all, the woman who had raised him. But then he looked at me, at Emily sleeping peacefully in my arms, and his resolve hardened. No, Mom, you need help, but not from us. Not anymore. We're leaving now, and I don't want you to contact us again. Patricia's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful children, after everything I've done for you. You'll regret this, mark my words. As we turned to leave, Patricia lunged forward, her hands outstretched towards Emily. If you're going to abandon me, at least let me hold my granddaughter one last time. I reacted instinctively, twisting away to shield Emily. In the process, I lost my balance, stumbling backwards. Time seemed to slow as I felt myself falling. Emily clutched tightly to my chest. Brian's strong arms caught me just before I hit the ground. Emily woke with a startled cry, and the sound seemed to snap Patricia out of her frenzy. She stood there, hands still outstretched, horror dawning on her face as she realized what she'd almost done. Get out, Brian growled, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. Get out now, or I swear I'll call the police. As we hurried to our car, Emily's cries piercing the night air, I looked back one last time. Patricia stood in the doorway, a small, broken figure silhouetted against the light. In that moment, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a deep, aching sadness for what could have been, and the knowledge that our lives would never be the same again. 6 months passed without a word from Patricia. Brian and I focused on our new life with Emily, cherishing every moment of parenthood. The peace we'd found was healing, but the shadow of Patricia's actions still lingered. Then on a crisp autumn morning, a letter arrived. I recognized the handwriting immediately, my heart racing as I opened it. Dear Evelyn and Brian, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to you from a place of deep reflection and regret. The past months have been difficult. I've lost my job, my home, and most importantly, my family. I realize now the gravity of my actions and the pain I've caused. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I truly believed I was acting in your best interests. I see now how wrong I was. If you're willing, I'd like to meet, to apologize in person and to make amends, if possible. With love and remorse, Patricia. I showed the letter to Brian, watching his face as he read. What do you think? I asked softly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, Evelyn. Part of me wants to believe her, but after everything... I nodded, understanding his hesitation. Maybe we should meet her, hear her out at least. A week later we sat in a neutral coffee shop, Emily sleeping peacefully in her stroller. When Patricia walked in, I barely recognized her. Gone was the imperious woman who had terrorized our lives. In her place was someone who looked small, tired, and deeply sad. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she said, her voice trembling slightly as she sat down. Brian nodded stiffly. You said you wanted to apologize. Patricia took a deep breath. Yes, I I'm so sorry, for everything. I see now how my actions were not just misguided, but cruel and destructive. I was so caught up in my own ideas of what was best that I couldn't see the damage I was causing. She turned to me, tears in her eyes. Evelyn, I treated you abominably. I was jealous of your relationship with Brian, threatened by the changes in his life. Instead of supporting you both, I tried to control everything. I'm truly deeply sorry. I felt a lump forming in my throat. Patricia, you hurt us deeply. You violated our trust, our home, our privacy. How can we ever trust you again? She nodded, wiping away a tear. I know. I don't expect you to trust me. I don't even expect you to forgive me. I hope that maybe someday we can find a way to have some kind of relationship. For Emily's sake, if nothing else. Brian leaned forward, his face serious. Mom, we appreciate your apology, but you need to understand, things can never go back to how they were. If we decide to allow you back into our lives, it will be on our terms with clear boundaries that you must respect. Patricia nodded eagerly. Of course, anything. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I acted the way I did. I want to be better, for all of you. As we talked, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The anger and resentment I'd been carrying began to dissipate, replaced by a cautious hope. We didn't forgive Patricia that day. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But we took the first steps towards healing. We agreed to occasional, supervised visits with Emily. Patricia would continue her therapy, and we would take things slowly, one day at a time. As we left the coffee shop, Brian squeezed my hand. Are you okay? He asked. I looked down at Emily, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the complex emotions swirling around her. Then I looked at Brian, the man who had stood by me through it all. You know what? I think I am, I said, smiling. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger. Whatever happens with your mother, I know we can handle it together. Brian pulled me close, kissing the top of my head. Together, he agreed. As we walked home, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we had each other. We had our beautiful daughter, and we had the strength that comes from overcoming adversity together. In the end, that was all that mattered. We were a family, bound not just by blood, but by love, respect, and the shared experience of fighting for what truly matters. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them united, stronger than ever before.
Life had its own simple way for me. My name is Julie, and at 35, you would find me in the local library. It wasn't exciting, but it was my place. The books were my friends, and the dusty shelves were where I felt at home. I liked staying out of the spotlight and being in the background. I lived in a small town where everyone knew each other's business. My days were mostly the same. Wake up, go to work, and then back to my small apartment. It was filled with used furniture and lots of books. I didn't really go out much, and that was okay with me, or at least that's what I told myself. Then Jack walked into my life. It was a day like any other. He wanted a book, something different, he said. He had a friendly smile and a warm voice that felt like sunshine on a cloudy day. Hey, could you help me find a book? I'm feeling adventurous, he said, smiling with his eyes. Sure, what type of book are you looking for? I asked, adjusting my glasses and trying not to stare at him too much. I don't know, surprise me, he answered, smiling in a way that showed he liked this small challenge. That was the start of everything. We began talking more and more. At first, it was about books, but then we started talking about our lives. Jack was different. He really listened, making me feel heard for the first time in a while. One day, he came in with a determined look. You know, Julie, you're the most interesting person I've met here. Why do you hide in here all day? He asked, leaning on the counter with a playful look in his eyes. I laughed, a sound that felt odd to me. Where else would I go? This town isn't exactly full of excitement, I said. Jack quickly replied, maybe you just need someone to explore it with. How about dinner tonight? My treat. I hesitated, not used to this kind of attention. I don't know, Jack. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? You spend an evening out with a guy who enjoys your book recommendations. Plus, I promise to make it worth your while. You can show me this hidden gem of a town, he encouraged, his confidence catching. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Okay, sure, but no fancy places. I don't like all that fuss, I said. Jack smiled brightly. I'll pick you up at 9. Where's something comfortable? That night changed everything. Jack showed me parts of the town I'd never noticed, even though I've lived here all my life. He made me laugh, a real deep laugh that I didn't know I could. He listened to my stories, my dreams and my fears, never making me feel unimportant. As we walked back to my apartment, he stopped and looked at me seriously. Julie, I know we've only just met, but there's something about you. You're genuine, and in a world full of fakes, that's rare. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. Jack, He cut me off gently, placing a finger on my lips. You don't have to say anything. Just know that I see you, Julie. I see who you are, and I like what I see. Jack was always the best part of my day, making everything brighter with his care. He made me feel seen, calling me beautiful, kind, and smart, things I hardly believed about myself. His warmth made the idea of forever not just possible but desirable. When he proposed, it felt like a dream. Marry me, Julie. I can't imagine my life without you, he said, his eyes sincere. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said, feeling excited and a bit shocked. But before we got caught up in wedding planning, there was one important step. We had to meet his parents. Jack had warned me, my folks have high standards for who I bring home, but don't worry, they're going to love you once they see how amazing you are. Though his words were meant to comfort me, my nerves were still there. I was very nervous before meeting Jack's parents. I searched my closet for something simple but nice to wear, but it felt like a difficult task. Jack, on the other hand, was completely relaxed. He seemed almost uninterested, as if he wasn't worried at all about how the meeting would go. You're overthinking it, Julie. Just wear what you're comfortable in, he told me casually, which only made me more nervous. When the day came, I chose a simple blue dress, hoping it was the right choice. As we drove to his parents' house, Jack seemed more interested in the music on the radio than in the meeting. You sure they're going to like me? I asked him, looking for some reassurance. They'll come around. Just be yourself, he replied, not really paying attention. I was anxious as we walked up to the door of Jack's childhood home. I remembered his warnings and felt scared about what was coming. When the door opened, Jack's parents were hard to read. The dinner that followed felt like a test. They asked me many questions, making it feel more like an interrogation than a casual conversation. So, Julie, Jack tells us you work at a library. Do you see yourself doing that long term? His father asked, sounding like he didn't think much of my job. I tried to answer confidently. I love working there. It's fulfilling in a way I can't quite describe, I said, hoping my passion would impress them. Jack was unusually quiet the whole time, offering little help as I dealt with their tough questions and subtle criticisms. It felt like I was fighting a battle alone, with Jack just watching on. The drive home was silent. I was not only upset about how the evening went, but also disappointed in Jack's lack of support. I thought you said they'd warm up to me, I said, my voice filled with hurt. Jack just shrugged, which frustrated me. Give it time, Julie. They just need to get to know you better, he said, but his words didn't really comfort me. After a few more dinners that felt just as uncomfortable, it was clear Jack's parents didn't like me much. They seemed to think I was after their money, which was not true at all. I was never interested in Jack's money. In fact, I barely knew about it until he mentioned it one day, saying his parents are a bit old-fashioned, worrying about money and status. One night, Jack came home looking serious. "Babe, we need to talk," he said, avoiding my eyes. I felt a knot in my stomach. "What's wrong?" I asked. "It's my parents," he started, finally looking at me. "They're insisting we sign a prenup." The word felt strange and bitter. "Jack, you know I don't care about your money, right?" He sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I know, and I don't care about it either, not when it comes to us." But they're adamant. They think it'll protect both of us or something. I was hurt, I won't lie. It felt like they were expecting our relationship to fail. But I loved Jack more than I cared about his parents' approval or some silly agreement. "Fine," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Let's sign it and be done with it. Your money, my money, whatever." "I don't care. I just want you." Jack looked relieved, and part of me hated that he felt that way. "Thank you, babe." "I hate this as much as you do. It's just a piece of paper. It won't change anything between us." So we signed the thing. Some lawyer his parents knew drew it up, making sure neither of us could touch the other's stuff if things went bad. It felt like signing a declaration of distrust before we even began, but I pushed those thoughts away. I was in love, and love was supposed to conquer all, right? Our wedding was simple, just how I wanted it. Just a few close friends, an intimate ceremony, and the promise of forever. I moved into Jack's place shortly after. It was a nice house, nothing too fancy, but it felt worlds away from my old apartment. Jack's parents lived nearby, which meant surprise visits that seemed more like inspections. Life with Jack started like a fairy tale, but it didn't take long for the shine to wear off, showing the harsh reality underneath. The change didn't happen overnight, but the signs slowly crept in, eroding what we had built. His mother, Megan, was the first crack in our perfect picture. She dropped by unannounced, scanning the house as if taking inventory. "Remember, this is Jack's house. Everything here is his," she reminded me. I kept my cool, replying, "I'm well aware, Megan. I'm not here for your son's things." "I love him," I said, but she just scoffed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, dear. Just remember, if you ever leave, you leave with what you came with. Nothing." One day, she walked around the house, pointing out everything. "See this couch? It's Jack's. That painting? Also Jack's. Remember, dear, in case things go bad, you have no claim over any of it." She told me with a nasty kind of sweetness in her voice. It seemed like she enjoyed reminding me of my place in their world. Jack's father, Alexander, wasn't any better. He and Megan acted like they owned our house. Not just visiting, they demanded coffee the moment they walked in, criticized how I made it too weak or too strong, and then sat in front of the TV expecting me to serve them. "Grab us some chips, will you? And maybe wash those clothes piling up in the corner," Alexander would say without even looking at me. The worst part was that Jack never stood up for me. He'd laugh along with them, adding his own comments. "Yeah, she's still learning how to do things right around here. Give her time." I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't the man I married. This was someone else, someone cruel and dismissive. "Do you even hear yourself? How can you let them treat me like this?" I'd confront Jack after his parents left. "Babe, they're just set in their ways. You know how old people are," he'd say, shrugging it off as if I was the one overreacting. "They don't mean anything by it. Plus, you know we're on their dime. Can't bite the hand that feeds, right?" That line hit me like a slap in the face. So that was it. I was just the freeloader, the girl who married into their little empire and had to play by their rules or get out. My job at the library, which I loved, was a joke to them. Just another reason for them to look down on me. The days all blurred together, each one just like the last, until that unremarkable Tuesday when everything changed. I was at work shelving books when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, doubling me over. It wasn't just stress. It was something more, something worse. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils. Lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't help but think how this was a new low. Alone, in pain, and not a single message or call from Jack. When I thought things couldn't get any worse, there was a knock at the door. A man I never expected was standing there. He wore a suit and held a briefcase, looking completely out of place in my sterile hospital room. "Are you Julie Bowen?" he asked. "Yes, that's me. Who are you?" I replied, my voice weak and tired from the pain and constant letdowns. "I'm Scott Atkins, a notary. I have something important to discuss with you," he said. His tone was formal, but there was something in his eyes that made me want to listen. I nodded for him to continue, curious despite everything. "It's about your great-uncle, Brandon Sanderson. He recently passed away, and you are his only heir, Julie. He left you an inheritance." His words didn't make sense at first. "Are you sure you have the right person?" "I haven't seen him for 18 years, I said. Scott nodded. "Quite sure. He was a private man, but he always remembered you and wanted to make sure you were taken care of." Lying in the hospital bed, feeling a mix of confusion and excitement, I watched as the notary got ready to explain my great-uncle's will. He cleared his throat, opened his briefcase, and spread out the documents in front of him. "Julie, your great-uncle was a wealthy man with fine taste. He left you a significant inheritance. We're not just talking about money here, though there's plenty of that, $40 million to be exact," Scott began, his voice calm and factual. $40 million, I repeated, my voice cracking. "That's right," he continued, unfazed by my shock. "But there's more. You're also inheriting shares in several large companies. These are not small investments. We're talking about major stakes in some of the most stable and profitable companies out there." My mind raced, trying to grasp the enormity of what he was saying. Owning parts of companies I had only heard about on the news seemed like a fantasy. "And there's property," Scott went on, flipping through the papers. "An old large house in one of the most prestigious areas. It's not just any house, Julie. It's a mansion with history, acres of land, and it's all yours now." I tried to imagine the house, the kind of place I had only seen in movies. It was overwhelming, to say the least. "Don't forget about the antique car," he added with a slight smile, as if expecting my reaction. "A classic, fully restored, and in mint condition. It's a collector's dream." I laughed, feeling like this was all too strange. An antique car, too. "What am I going to do with that?" "I barely drive as it is," I said. Scott's smile got bigger. "Well, it's yours to do with as you please. Maybe take it for a spin now," and then he continued. "And then there's the furniture and paintings inside the house. They're genuine antiques, some of them centuries old. Your great-uncle had a taste for fine things." The room seemed to shrink, and the air got heavier as I tried to understand everything he was saying. "So I've inherited a fortune, a company, a mansion, an antique car, and a collection of art and furniture. That's unbelievable. It's all yours, Julie. Your great-uncle wanted to make sure you were well taken care of. It seems he saw something special in you." Special? I felt anything but special lying in a hospital bed after the worst few months of my life. Yet here I was, suddenly a multi-millionaire, trusted with a legacy I didn't even know existed. "Thank you, Mr. Atkins." This is a lot to take in. I don't even know where to start, I admitted, feeling grateful, disbelief, and a huge sense of responsibility. We'll take it one step at a time, he assured me. I'm here to help you through the whole process. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Jack calling for the first time in days. Ignoring it, I turned back to Scott. What happens now? We'll need to handle some paperwork, but the inheritance is yours. Your life is about to change, Julie. And change it did. After the unexpected windfall, Jack and his folks seemed to change their attitude. Their daily hospital visits felt like scenes from a cheesy movie. Jack, who hadn't bothered to check on me before, was now constantly by my side, fussing over my blanket with a worried look. "How are you feeling today, love?" He'd ask, his voice dripping with sweetness that didn't reach his eyes. His mother, Megan, was even more over the top, if possible. "Darling, I'm going to cook your favorite lasagna when you get back home." "Just you wait," she said, her smile wide, but not quite genuine. It was all too much, too sudden, yet I played along, smiling weakly and thanking them for their care. But suspicion gnawed at me, urging me to look beyond their actions. So one day, after their routine visit, I gathered the strength to slip out of my bed and follow them. My heart pounded with every step as I hid behind a corner. I overheard them as they showed their true colors, not knowing I was listening. Their laughter was loud and harsh. "Can you believe how easy it is? She's terribly naive. She completely fooled," Jack said, laughing. Megan, always planning, spoke with a sharp tone. "Make sure she has a baby with you, Jack. Once she does, she'll never be able to leave. And then we'll really have control over her and her fortune." Their cruel and cold words didn't shock me. I felt disappointed, yes, but not surprised. They had shown who they really were, and I was done pretending otherwise. Silently, I returned to my hospital bed, their mocking words igniting a determination within me. They saw me only as a way to secure their future, but I was done playing their game. Back at home after being discharged, I felt like a stranger in what was supposed to be my own place. Jack and his parents were there, pretending to be concerned. The air was tense with unspoken expectations. Jack broke the silence with a hint of sweetness, but mostly greed. "Babe, you're home. How are you feeling? We've been so worried about you." Ignoring the knot in my throat, I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm feeling better, thanks. But we need to talk, all of us," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. Megan, ever the actress, stepped forward, her hands clasped as if praying. "Of course, dear. We're here for you, whatever you need." It was now or never. I took a deep breath and made my intentions clear. "I'm filing for divorce, Jack. And before you ask, no, you won't see a dime of my inheritance." The room went silent, the atmosphere drained as if by a vacuum. Jack's face went pale, his facade slipping to reveal his panic. "Divorce? But why? I thought we were happy." Happy? The word tasted bitter. "You and your mom and your dad have made my life miserable. You've treated me like a servant, not a wife. And now suddenly you're concerned about me because I have something you want." Jack struggled for words, but Megan quickly intervened. "This is nonsense. We've always treated you like family. You're imagining things, dear." I rolled my eyes, tired of their lies. I took out the prenuptial agreement from my bag and showed it to him. "This saved me. You thought you could fool me, but I'm not the naive girl you thought I was." Alexander, who had been silent until now, finally spoke with a mix of anger and defeat. "You'll regret this. We're your family." "No, you were never my family. A family doesn't treat someone like dirt and then become nice when money is involved." I'm done here. Moving into my own small and cozy apartment was a breath of fresh air. I desperately needed it. It wasn't just a new place to live. It was my declaration of independence, my fresh start. The phone calls started almost immediately. Jack, sounding desperate, was the first to call. "Julie, please, you've got to come back. We can work this out. I know we can." His pleas didn't affect me. "Jack, it's over. I'm not coming back. You need to accept that," I said firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. Soon after, Megan called her voice a toxic mix of anger and guilt-tripping. "Ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, you owe us Julie. You're making a huge mistake." "Owe you for what, Megan? For making me feel like a burden?" "No, I don't owe you anything. Goodbye." Hanging up on her felt like shedding a heavy weight, a final cut from the ties that bound me to a life of misery. The divorce was a relief, a clean break from a past that had threatened to consume me. Through friends, I heard about the fallout between Jack and his parents. Ironically, the prenuptial agreement they had insisted on was now the source of their family strife. With my great-uncle's inheritance securely in my name, I found purpose in generosity. A significant portion went to charities that mattered to me, causes that would make a difference in the world. But it was the bookstore that became my passion project, a cozy haven for lovers of old and rare books. It was my way of reconnecting with the world on my terms. My journey hadn't been easy, fraught with challenges and hard decisions. But standing in my bookstore, surrounded by the stories of countless others, I knew I had found my happy ending. It wasn't just about moving on from Jack and his family's manipulation. It was about rediscovering who I was and what I loved. Here's to new beginnings, I toasted to myself one quiet evening after closing up shop. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to travel, filled with possibilities and the promise of newfound happiness. Is Grandpa behaving himself well? Sort of. He injured his leg. Old people can be such a nuisance. I wish they'd think about those of us who have to take care of them. That's not a nice way to say it. Patricia, it's fine. He's already declining quite a bit. I can't handle the fuss of old people, but you're used to it, so you'll be fine. The other day, my husband's grandfather, Michael, fell in a garden and injured his leg. It's not a serious injury, but he's already 82 years old. Because of his age, we're having him rest in bed just to be safe so it doesn't get worse. My mother-in-law won't even go near him, let alone take care of him. I'm Emily, 30 years old. I got married 3 years ago and live with my husband Daniel's family. My husband was my boss at the company where I worked, a company founded by his grandfather. When I joined 8 years ago, my father-in-law was already the president, and my grandfather-in-law was the chairman. But back then, the grandfather was still handling all the important tasks and responsibilities of the company. 2 years ago, when Grandpa turned 80, he remained chairman but handed over most of the public duties to my father-in-law. "Michael, you've worked hard all this time. Now leave the company matters to Christopher and take it easy," my mother-in-law said with a smile, but her words sounded sarcastic to me. Grandfather-in-law is a bit stubborn, but a fair and kind person with a good reputation. In contrast, my father-in-law seemed somewhat immature, never expressing his opinions clearly and utterly unreliable compared to Grandpa. And he always does whatever my mother-in-law says. My grandmother-in-law has already passed away, and I never met her. My husband and I started dating when we worked together on the same product planning team. 3 years after I joined the company, my husband, energetically leading the team, seemed reliable to me, though a bit self-righteous. Maybe I felt that way because I lost my father early and grew up with just my mother. My mother also passed away from illness 2 years ago, and now I have no family other than my in-laws. Shortly after I got married, my mother fell ill and needed care, so I quit my job to take care of her. The fact that my husband's family didn't object was probably due to a single comment from Grandpa. It's only natural to take care of the mother who raised you alone. Don't worry and take good care of her. Thanks to that, I was able to be by my mother's side every day for a year without financial worries until she passed away. My mother-in-law seemed a bit dissatisfied, but I was truly grateful. However, since Grandpa handed over the company to my father-in-law, everyone's attitudes towards him have gradually changed. No one here listens to his opinions as much, and I can't shake the feeling that they're treating him carelessly. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but watching my mother-in-law and husband's behavior, I can't help but feel that way. My father-in-law's attitude is non-committal, but it feels like he's ignoring Grandpa as if he's no longer needed since he's practically retired. Watching my in-laws' behavior, I feel somewhat angry. Hey, don't you think your attitude, Patricia, and yours too, is a bit cold towards Grandpa? So what's the big deal? Grandpa tries to talk to you, and you barely respond. You don't even try to help them. Like I have time to deal with old people. You can take care of Grandpa. You're the one with the free time. You don't have to talk like that. Quiet. I'm tired from work. Don't nag me about unnecessary things. This is how it goes. No matter, they won't listen to me. My grandfather-in-law doesn't say anything to his family about this. Now I'm the only one who talks to my grandfather-in-law at home. Grandpa, the weather is nice today. Shall we go for a little walk outside? Your leg seems to be healing well, and I think it will be good rehabilitation. Thank you. Let's go out for a bit. The two of us went to the park where there were several families with children playing around. My grandfather-in-law looked at this scene with joy. Christopher and Daniel enjoy times like that too. I was busy with work and couldn't take care of the children much. Maybe that's why I couldn't raise Christopher and Daniel properly. My grandfather-in-law said with a slightly sad face, almost like he was talking to himself. I think about how everyone can be kinder to my grandfather-in-law, but I can't come up with a good idea. But then my in-law suggested building a house for my grandfather-in-law. This house is over 50 years old, right? The layout is bad. It's hard to use. But instead of spending money on repairs, it would be better to build a new house in a more convenient location. A new house. Michael is getting older, and it's good that he only got injured last time, but we never know what will happen. So let's make the house barrier-free so we won't have trouble if care is needed. I see. We can even put Michael's room in the middle so everyone can take care of him easily. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Right, so it's settled then. And Michael, at the cost if it's a house for all of us, I'll take care of it. Talk to Mr. Jones about the money. Typical Michael. Thank you. We appreciate it. My mother-in-law smiled happily. It seems to me that they only flatter him when they want money. But if everyone takes care of my grandfather-in-law after moving to the new house, I thought there could be nothing better. Mr. Jones is the company's in-house counsel and also manages my grandfather-in-law's personal assets. My grandfather-in-law liked his character and made him in-house counsel, and it's been nearly 30 years. He is 58 now, and a person my grandfather-in-law trusts the most. I've met him several times, and he seems to be a very honest person. He always cares about my grandfather-in-law's health, and sometimes I think he's more like a son than his real sons. Having such people around my grandfather-in-law makes me feel a little relieved. I wasn't informed about the details of the house being built, but my mother-in-law seemed very cheerful, and the three of them were looking at interior design magazines, and discussing various things seemed to be going smoothly. Then something unexpected happened. It was revealed that my grandfather-in-law had a debt of $1,820. Wait, what's this about $1,820,000? I exclaimed. My grandfather-in-law had become a co-signer for a loan for a friend's company, but that company was in trouble, and the debt had become my grandfather-in-law's responsibility. Wait, they're not going to take the house. It's under construction, are they? Since the contract has already been completed, and as Patricia said, it's in the president's name, so it's fine. My mother-in-law seemed relieved at those words. Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad we did it my way. Listening to that conversation, I learned for the first time that the house was in my father-in-law's name, even though my grandfather-in-law had paid for it. Putting it in my father-in-law's name seemed just like something my mother-in-law would do. I also wondered why they didn't think of giving up the house to help repay the debt. Hey, this debt is Michael's fault and has nothing to do with us or the company, right? Well, it was signed in Michael's name. All good then, there's no problem. I couldn't understand what was good about it, but since my grandfather-in-law didn't say anything during that conversation, I didn't intervene either. After all, it's not an amount I could handle. A few days later, my grandfather-in-law's behavior began to change gradually. Grandpa, what would you like to eat for lunch? Who are you calling Grandpa? I'm only 50. You have no right to call me that. Sorry, Emily, right. I was lost in thought. At first, I thought he was just deep in thought, and when it happened repeatedly, I began to feel uneasy. Patricia, what are you doing? Where's my meal, Grandpa? I'm Emily. Patricia is your daughter-in-law. You ate your meal earlier, didn't you? Are you trying to starve me? I wondered if my grandfather-in-law's condition was triggered by the $1,820,000 debt, and seeing that none of his family members were trying to help him might have been a double shock. I tried to persuade my grandfather-in-law to go to the hospital, but he adamantly refused. He might not want to admit that he could have dementia. I didn't want to force him, but I felt helpless on my own. I consulted my husband, but he simply brushed it off, saying it had nothing to do with him. My mother-in-law wasn't any help either, so I turned to my father-in-law as the only option. Yeah, I heard from Patricia. Daniel, they think it might be dementia. Can you go to the hospital with us? I asked him. But it's not that bad yet, right? If we go to the hospital, others will find out my father has dementia, he responded. There are good medications now that can slow the progression. Well, there's no need to rush. Let's watch him a little longer. Emily is here, so they'll be fine, right? I couldn't help but feel frustrated by their lack of concern. I couldn't depend on them. Grandpa, let's go to the hospital. Let's see you properly examined, I urged. Who are you? Where are you planning to take me? You're up to no good, he retorted. I felt tears welling up, seeing how stubborn my once kind grandfather-in-law had become. But my mother-in-law just laughed amusedly. Even if he was the chairman, it's over for him now. But now everything, even the company, is all Christopher, she remarked casually. Patricia, Grandpa isn't completely unaware. He's listening to everything. He'll forget everything soon. He'll start wandering, dribbling. Just thinking about it gives me chills. He's nothing but a nuisance now, I protested. How can you say that? Grandpa has worked hard for the family all of his life. My mother-in-law's words made me both angry and sad, but my grandfather-in-law just smiled. See, this old man doesn't understand anything, she added, laughing. I was furious at my mother-in-law's callousness, but soon the new house would be ready. Perhaps things might change once we move there. Since it's a house that Grandpa built, the family might show some gratitude and be kind to him. I couldn't completely abandon that faint hope. And 2 months later, the house was finally built. For days, I had been compelled to pack my in-laws' and husband's belongings, while my father-in-law's and my own items remained mostly untouched. Even when I attempted to organize my things, my in-laws and husband kept assigning me tasks, preventing any progress. However, I reasoned it would be okay to relocate the smaller items later, since this house wasn't disappearing on moving day. After transferring most of the belongings, I went to call my father-in-law, but my husband intercepted me. "Ah, you and Grandpa can stay here," he announced. "What? You can stay in his house? We don't need any extra baggage in the new house. In other words, you and Grandpa will live here from now on, and I'll give you Grandpa's debt too. Well, you can at least be a housekeeper. Hey, let's go. Yeah, I'm coming. Good luck with all the debt repayment and live-in care." My in-laws cheerfully departed, leaving me stunned. For a while, I couldn't comprehend what had just occurred. Were we abandoned? Not just me, but also my grandfather-in-law. Only they would reside in the new house. It took me some time to grasp because it was beyond my imagination that someone could be so cruel. How should I explain this to my grandfather-in-law? Slowly, I made my way back to the rear room. I didn't mind caring for my grandfather-in-law at all. That was my intention from the start. As I timidly prepared to call out to him, noticing his back facing me, he seemed to sense my presence and turned around. "Have they gone already?" His expression as he uttered those words looked entirely different from what it had been just months ago. To be honest, he seemed like a different person. I wondered if a new symptom had emerged, but the next moment, my grandfather-in-law smiled, and his subsequent words caught me off guard. As I was talking to my grandfather-in-law, Mr. Jones came. "Chairman, have you finished getting rid of the unnecessary staff?" "Yes, it's all done. Let's go, shall we?" "Huh. Where are we going?" "Of course, to the new house." I left the house where I had been residing, guided by my grandfather-in-law. Without fully understanding what was unfolding, the following month, my mother-in-law and husband bombarded me with countless calls. My grandfather-in-law declared he wouldn't entertain their calls anymore, but I answered my husband's call due to the looming divorce. "Hey, Emily, is Grandpa with you?" When I went to the old house, it was up for sale. "It's not worth $1,820,000, so you can't repay the debt. Is that why you did that?" My husband interrogated. "What do you mean? Put Grandpa on." "Dad said he can't get in touch at all. That forgetful old man has done something outrageous." I knew what he was referring to, but I wanted to hear my husband's side of the story. Grandpa sold the company's stocks to the executive director. Thanks to that, the executive director became the largest shareholder, and a shareholders' meeting and board meeting were held, resulting in Dad being dismissed as president. But the executive director is well-liked. Maybe Grandpa thought it was better to hand over the company to him. The executive director must have deceived the old man into selling the stocks. This is invalid. You seem to be misunderstanding something, but Grandpa doesn't have dementia. If anything, he seems more coherent than before. Until that moving day, I genuinely believed that my grandfather-in-law had dementia. It appears that my grandfather-in-law harbored suspicions from the moment my mother-in-law mentioned building a house to live with him, so he devised a plan. He fainted to Mina to observe how my in-laws and husband would react. As anticipated, they revealed their true colors one after another. In the end, they left my grandfather-in-law and me behind. I struggled to contain my laughter, because everything unfolded exactly as I had expected. My grandfather-in-law then said, I found myself surprised, relieved, and slightly conflicted. To deceive the enemy, you must first deceive your allies. My grandfather-in-law chuckled. It seemed he had been receiving regular updates on the company from the executive director and Mr. Jones. With my grandfather-in-law gone, my father-in-law and husband acted as they pleased, self-righteous, and completely ignoring the opinions of the employees, often entertaining at the company's expense. Eventually, my grandfather-in-law handed over the company to my father-in-law, but he harbored concerns about the future, leading him to take decisive action. In the end, he decided he couldn't entrust it to his son and left it to the executive director. What about the $1,820,000 debt? My husband inquired. That's gone now, I replied. Indeed, my grandfather-in-law had been a guarantor for a friend's dad, but he had personal assets exceeding that amount. However, I deliberately omitted this information to avoid my mother-in-law and husband targeting those assets. The friend was the son of a benefactor who had helped my father-in-law when he was young. Moreover, the countryside land owned by the son was going to be developed into a resort, allowing him to sell it at a high price. You're kidding, my husband exclaimed. More importantly, are you guys okay? I asked, concerned. We're not okay. Both my father and I were denounced by the company. What should we do now? My husband lamented. What? There's also the mortgage on the house. I revealed what. What do you mean, the mortgage on the house my husband took back? Haven't you realized it yet? The house money should have all been paid by Grandpa. I clarified Christopher signed without checking everything. It shows he really didn't have the qualities of a president. I added, You're kidding, my husband sighed. As a consequence, my parents-in-law lost the house they had built because they couldn't pay the mortgage. Now they reside in an old apartment over 50 years old, struggling to repay the unpaid loan despite their attempts to contact me. Suggesting we all live together, it was impossible. Now my grandfather-in-law retired from his chairman position and bought an old house in the countryside. Emily, you can go and live wherever you like, freely. You don't have to worry about living expenses, my grandfather-in-law assured me. But I chose to be with him. If I'm not in the way, please let me be with you, I expressed, tears welling up in my eyes. My grandfather-in-law's eyes welled up too. Thanks to Mr. Jones, the divorce was finalized and procedures were taken to exclude my former father-in-law and former husband from inheritance. I became my grandfather-in-law's adopted daughter. If anything happens to him, I intend to take care of him until the end. Now the two of us enjoy working in the fields together. Dad, look at this radish, it's big. I exclaimed as warm moments flowed in the pouring sunlight. I wish for these days to continue, even just one day longer. My in-laws were drunk at the wedding, but they didn't care. Even though people were whispering about them, they started yelling at me. It's too late now that you're married, but if you want to be part of this family, you need to show us you have enough money, they said. Yes, your dad is right, so make sure to give us $1,000 a month as a new bonus, they added. I was shocked by their demands. I couldn't believe they would say such things at my wedding reception. I just stared at them, feeling my face go pale. My dad took the microphone from them. Enough is enough. Don't you realize you're embarrassing yourselves? He said, My name is Linda. I am a 30-year-old office worker. I am currently dating Larry, who is 32 years old. I met him through a friend who was worried about me being single, so she introduced us. After dating for a year, Larry proposed, and now we are about to get married. I lost my mother when I was very young, and my father raised me on his own. He worked very hard to take care of me. I didn't have many worries growing up, but losing my mom, who I love so much, deeply hurt me. Because of this, I was very careful with my emotions. That's why I hadn't dated anyone seriously since my school days. I even thought it would be okay if I stayed single forever. Then I met Larry. At first, I didn't feel any romantic feelings for him, even though he asked me out many times. Larry really cared about me and was always a gentleman. Slowly, I began to open my heart to him, and we started dating. He kept caring for me, and I felt very happy. He became very special to me, and I started thinking I wanted to be with him forever. Then he proposed, and we decided to get married. Larry understood everything about me and was always kind to me, no matter what. Don't worry if you're ever feeling unsure about something. I'll be here for you until you feel better. I love you, Linda. You can count on me, he would say. His words moved me. He promised to make me happy for the rest of my life. Just being with him warmed my heart. If he cared that much for me, I thought I should do the same for him. When I told my father that we decided to get married, he was so happy that he cried. "Wow, Linda, you're finally getting married. I'm so happy for you," he said. "Oh, Dad, you're being dramatic," I joked. "Wow, I hadn't heard anything like that from you until now." "I was always worried that you might never get married," he replied. "Oh, really? I had no idea you were worried about that," I said. "Well, every father worries about his daughter, you know." "Anyway, congratulations," he said. "Thanks, Dad," I replied. I was so happy to be congratulated by my dad, who had raised me by himself. I thought I would probably cry at the wedding, and my dad would probably cry even more since he was already crying. Now with that, Larry and I started preparing for our big day. We were both busy with our jobs, so our days were very hectic. We worked during the weekdays and made wedding preparations over the weekends. There was no time to rest. Our calendars were always full. On a rare day off, we were supposed to visit Larry's parents' house. I was going to meet Larry's parents for the first time. Larry had come over to meet my father right after he proposed to me. Originally, I had planned to visit Larry's parents right after that to introduce myself, but they were very busy, and our schedules never matched. Finally, some time passed, and we managed to arrange a visit. As we arrived at his parents' house, I suddenly felt nervous. "Don't worry, my parents are very kind," Larry reassured me. His words made me feel a bit better, and I rang the doorbell. It was his mother who opened the door. "Mom, I'm home," Larry said. "Welcome home, Larry." "It's so good of you to come," his mother replied warmly. As she talked with her son, I greeted her as politely as I could. "Nice to meet you. My name is Linda, and I'm Larry's fiancée," I said. "I see you're Linda," she said. Her voice was much lower than when she spoke to Larry, and her smile vanished. She looked me up and down as if judging me. Then she led us to the living room, where her cold attitude didn't change. "Linda, I'm curious about what you bring to the table. Larry is our treasure and our only child. If you're going to marry him, you need to be a suitable wife. Are you worthy of him?" she asked, more like an interrogation. I was taken aback by her question. I hadn't expected such a cold attitude from my future mother-in-law and was at a loss for words. "You're going to join our family, you know. Are you ready for that?" She continued. True, marrying Larry meant joining his family, but it's not like Larry's family were the Kennedys or some well-known high society family. It's not like I was marrying into a royal family. Why was I being asked to make such a commitment? Besides, I wasn't even going to live with them. I don't like being pressured with questions like these. As I was trying to figure out how to respond, His mother seemed impatient with my slow reply and scolded me harshly. "When I ask you a question, answer me right away." "You're so rude," she snapped. "I'm asking if you're ready for this," she continued, raising her voice. Despite feeling overwhelmed, I managed to say, "I hope that Larry and I will support each other in our marriage." When I said that, his mother was not convinced. What a naive thing to say. You aren't just going to support each other, you are supposed to support Larry. It's your job as a wife to support your husband. You don't even understand the basics, she criticized. Then Larry's father, who was sitting next to her, intervened. "Honey, calm down." "Sorry about that, Linda. You must have been startled by my wife's words," he said, trying to ease the tension. "It's all right," I replied, trying to remain calm. His mother is very protective of her only son. Maybe she was just nervous and spoke without thinking. Just then, Larry's brother walked in. He spoke in a quiet, calm, and gentle tone. He seemed like a kind man, which gave me a moment of relief. But that relief was short-lived. With a smile on his face, he said the most unexpected thing. "What my wife says is actually justified. What concerns me the most is that you come from a single-parent family," he said. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, confused. Well, being raised by just one parent doesn't have a good public image. We can't be too happy to have such a person become the wife of our only son, can we? He explained. "Hold on a minute," I said, unable to let this comment slide. "What is wrong with being raised by a single parent? My father worked very hard to raise me by himself. I am very thankful for my upbringing, and I am proud of my father. Being raised by a single parent doesn't make me any less valuable." But they still argued. "Since you were missing one parent, you couldn't have learned how to be a good wife, do housework and such," I responded. "I did a lot of housework to help my father. I can also cook pretty well, so please don't say that." Despite my response, Larry's mother ignored what I said and finally stated, "I will allow you to marry Larry, but in exchange, you must promise to devote everything to us because we are Larry's parents. Can you promise me that?" I was shocked. "What? Since you came here to ask for our permission to marry our son, you do know what your duties are, don't you?" Before I could say more, he continued the conversation. I found that my in-laws had completely taken over the conversation, giving me little chance to respond. That night, as I thought more about the marriage, I decided to share my feelings with Larry. "Do your parents always talk to people like that?" I asked. Larry seemed unfazed. I was surprised that Larry didn't see anything wrong with what his parents had said to me. "Well, I mean, the way your parents spoke to me, and what they said," I tried to explain. "Oh, really? Well, they were just talking about whether you were ready for this marriage. I get that your parents are worried about their son's marriage, but I feel like what your parents were saying was a bit too much," I replied. "Why is that?" "My parents didn't say anything wrong. Besides, they've given us permission to get married, so don't worry about it," Larry said. But I felt uneasy that Larry seemed to side with his parents more than with me. That was very troubling. I guess he realized I was feeling unsure because he gave me a hug. "Linda, you don't have to worry so much. My parents are just a bit upset because their only son is getting married," he said. He spoke as if he didn't fully support me. "It's all going to be fine. Don't overthink it. I'm sure they just want what's best for us. They want us to be as good of a couple as they are. That's why they were a bit harsh," he added. "Oh, really?" I replied. Maybe his parents have high expectations for us. But even if that's the case, I don't think it's right for them to belittle me because I was raised by my father. I don't think people who say such things make a good couple. We are the ones getting married, and we should be the focus, not the approval or disapproval. With that perspective, although I was still a bit upset, I decided not to dwell too much on his parents' opinions. Then the day of the wedding arrived. We had many guests, including our relatives, friends, colleagues, and bosses. I walked down the aisle with my father, who had raised me all my life. Larry and I exchanged our vows and rings. We were met with applause, and for the first time, I truly realized that I was getting married to Larry. I felt the happiness I had never felt before. As we walked into the reception hall, we made our way through the crowd, greeted by videos of us as part of the entertainment. It was a joyful time. I chatted with friends I hadn't seen in a while, and many people congratulated us, despite my earlier worries about his parents. I was glad I had decided to marry Larry. I was glad we decided to have a memorable day after the ceremony. We planned to officially register our marriage, and Larry and I would become husband and wife. I cherished every moment and felt so happy. Time flew by, and soon it was time for the final part of the event. The bridegroom and both sets of parents lined up to greet the guests. But I started to feel uneasy because of Larry's parents. We were all supposed to be standing in line, but his parents were wobbly on their feet. If you looked closely, you could see that their faces were bright red. They had drunk too much. Some relatives asked if they were okay. My in-laws were clearly drunk, but we had to wrap up the ceremony and get it over with. The moderator handed the microphone to me and Larry. Suddenly, Larry's mother snatched my hand away from him and yelled at me like a professional wrestler in the middle of a challenge. "Listen to me, Linda. After this wedding, you're going to devote yourself to us completely. Prepare yourself because we are going to test you really hard." The guests started whispering to each other, and some even thought it was a joke and laughed. Then Larry's father grabbed the microphone. "Linda, don't you feel embarrassed to wear a dress like that? It doesn't suit you at all, dear. You should tell her the truth." His mother chimed in as expected. The whispers among the guests changed in tone. I looked at Larry, hoping he would stop his father's rude comments. But Larry said he couldn't do that and that his parents weren't doing anything wrong. It became clear he would never protect me from his parents in the future. That was the moment I realized it. I was certain of it even as the hall buzzed around us. My in-laws were drunk and continued to insult me. "Well, you're already married. But if you're going to be part of this family, you need to prove that you have enough money," they said. "Yes, that's right." They continued. "After you register your marriage at the city hall, you should give us a few thousand a month and your entire bonus." I was shocked by their words. I never thought they would say such things at our wedding reception. I just stared at them, feeling my face go pale. My father took the microphone from them. "Enough of this. Don't you realize you're making fools of yourselves?" he said, though still showing some respect. His parents glared at my father. "Why are you interrupting us while we're talking?" I knew this woman's father was no good. "Single parents are never any good," they said. How dare they insult my father? I thought. My father, keeping his cool, replied, "You people are even worse than I imagined. You even refuse to meet me because I am a single father. I never thought that someone like you would work for President Scott. President Scott is such a respectable person. I assumed his employees would be decent as well." At that, my father-in-law's face turned very serious. "How do you know President Scott?" "He's a business partner of my company, and more importantly, an old friend of mine," my father explained. "And speaking of single parents, President Scott was raised by his mother alone. So you just insulted the president of the company you work for." Seeing my in-laws' faces fall at my father's words, I realized they finally understood the mess they had gotten themselves into. "I apologize, sir. Please don't tell the president about this," my in-law pleaded, suddenly falling to his knees. Just moments before, he had acted like he was in charge, but now he looked defeated. I could hear laughter from the guests. Some even pulled out their cell phones to record the scene. No matter how much you apologize, you can't take back your words, my dad said. He walked over to me and asked if I wanted to go home with him. I said yes and took the microphone from Larry's hand. Thank you for the great entertainment, but there will be no marriage, I announced to Larry and his parents and to everyone who attended. I will make sure to return the money you gave us for this occasion. Then I left the reception hall with my dad. I caught a glimpse of Larry and his parents looking dismayed, and soon after, his relatives rushed over with worried expressions on their faces. The place must have been in complete chaos. As I returned their money, I apologized to the guests. They all expressed sympathy for me and praised me and my dad for our actions, saying it was good that we weren't taken advantage of by such terrible people. Later, Larry's coworkers, who had attended the reception, must have spread the word about what happened at his company. Larry became known for having such unreasonable parents and was criticized for having a weak character. His embarrassment was so great that he resigned voluntarily, of course. The president of my father-in-law's company found out about the incident. Larry's father was demoted and sent to an insignificant division of the company, transferred to a remote office in the countryside. I heard that Larry's family has been ostracized by all his relatives because of what happened at the wedding. While it's unfortunate, it really was their own doing, and sometimes things like that just can't be avoided. In the meantime, I've been using this opportunity to strengthen my relationship with my dad. We've been spending more quality time together, and it's helped me appreciate all he's done for me even more. One day, he sat me down for a serious talk. "Linda, are you interested in running the business?" he asked, looking at me with a mixture of hope and seriousness. "Do you mean?" I started, a bit unsure where he was heading with this. "Why don't you work towards becoming the president of my company?" he suggested. It was a big step, and he seemed to believe I was ready to take it on. "I'll do my best," I promised him, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. I decided then to focus on stepping up my game at work, rather than getting entangled in romantic relationships. For now, I wanted to prove to myself and to my dad that I could excel, and perhaps one day be a great leader like him. Currently, I am deeply involved in learning everything I can of my dad's company. The work is challenging but fulfilling, and I'm determined to make the most of this opportunity. Reflecting on the wedding fiasco, it's clear that Larry's in-laws were quite unreasonable, turning what should have been a beautiful event into a spectacle. Thankfully, since the marriage wasn't officially registered, I was spared from a legally binding mistake. Now free from any marital ties, and with no looming in-law issues, I can focus solely on my career aspirations. It's a relief to know that out of a chaotic situation came a clear path forward for me. I look forward to what the future holds, and I'm excited about the potential of leading the company. I wish myself all the best and hope that anyone watching this story can take something valuable from it. Thank you for staying till the end. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed the story, and I hope to see you in the next video. I've decided to split the $5 million between my mom and me. This decision came right after my dad's funeral. Bob, who had looked through the inheritance papers without asking, said to me, "Elena, don't be greedy." At that moment, I thought to myself, finally, I can quit my job and be thankful for the old man. But then Bob called him a doddering old man. I couldn't help but blurt out, "Are you talking about my dad?" While ignoring my shock, Bob and my mother-in-law were already excitedly talking about buying a new car and going shopping. With everything going on, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was about to burst. On top of all the housework, asking for money, and then insulting my dad, I just couldn't live with Bob and my mother-in-law anymore. Holding back my anger, I forced a smile and said, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law see fit." I am Alina Anaya, a 40-year-old housewife. Working with my husband, my parents, both doctors, ran a well-known clinic in our hometown. As their only child, I was deeply loved. After finishing Commonwealth School, I got a job at a big pharmaceutical company. Though my parents wished I had become a doctor, they supported my choice. 12 years ago, my mother died in an accident, leaving me and my father heartbroken. During that tough time, Bob, who was then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a friend and got engaged 4 years after my mom's death. Bob worked in the food and beverage sector and earned less than me, but I believed we could face any challenge and be happy together. My dad was very happy for us. When I told my dad about our engagement, he said, "I've heard how Bob has supported you, Alina. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her." Bob stood up straight and promised in front of my dad, "I will make her happy." Standing next to Bob, I felt truly happy. The next week, we went to Bob's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, who wore a lot of makeup and was divorced from Bob's father, looked at me critically. "Marriage, huh? You're Bob's choice. Isn't she a bit plain for you? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" Bob quickly replied, "Mom, you know in pharmaceuticals, right? Alina works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his own practice." I expected Bob to talk about my personality, but instead, he talked about my job and my dad's status. Hearing this, his mother's attitude changed. "Oh, Bob, you should have mentioned these important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Alina." "Thank you." After getting approval from Bob's mother, Bob was very happy. However, I felt uneasy. Even though everything was going smoothly with our plans to get married, when we were about to register our marriage, my dad, who is a doctor and real estate investor, gave me an apartment in a luxury building in San Diego City as a wedding gift. I told Bob, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Bob smiled, and we started our married life. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Bob, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to clean up. While I wanted us to share household responsibilities, Bob's careless attitude increased my frustration. In the first year of our marriage, I managed all the household responsibilities, even though I had some complaints. Since we were still in the honeymoon phase, with the exhaustion from work and the struggle to keep up with chores, I reached my limit. In our second year, I decided it was time to have a serious talk with Bob about sharing household duties. I bravely shared my unhappiness with Bob, but to my disappointment, he responded without any appreciation or thought, saying, "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." Just like that, Bob hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to handle most of our household duties. But that wasn't the only issue. After marrying Bob, I found out his mother also had some strange ideas. Bob wasn't really into celebrating occasions, so I decided to send a quality scarf and some carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Even though I picked a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me displeased. She criticized the scarf for not being from a famous brand and said it was ridiculous to send such an unknown item. I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen, insisting she wanted something from a very famous luxury brand. Shocked, I told Bob about this when he got home, but instead of understanding, he said, "Just do as she says." Bob didn't support me, and from then on, we started giving his mother cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 7th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Bob would always smile and give money to his mother without any complaints. Even though I had a job, Bob's income was small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Out of desperation, I had to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Bob cherished his mother, and she had supported me during tough times. She was the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 10 years of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and that treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Elena, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I asked my dad why he even had to go through this. My days became a constant balancing act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While my job was somewhat flexible, managing the house was tough. When I told Bob I would be taking care of my father, he didn't react or offer to help. "It's tough with your father's sudden illness. Please do your best," was all Bob said. He only visited my father in the hospital once. I was so busy taking care of my father that I didn't have time for Bob. If I had time to worry about Bob, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked, "Elena, how is your marriage with Bob going?" Caught off guard, I thought about Bob's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, my father seemed to understand and told me, "Elena, you don't have to endure this. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." I couldn't hold back my tears, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 5 months later, the inevitable happened. My father passed away quietly, engulfed in immense sorrow. I started arranging the funeral. Bob showed no interest in my grief and didn't help with any of the preparations. Despite this, I was too busy with the funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Bob. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell. Even the indifferent Bob and his mother attended. The day after the funeral, I received a call from a lawyer about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting with the lawyer and listened to the explanation. The information was all new and quite surprising. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $5 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor, but also made real estate investments, leaving behind such a vast fortune, all of it to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I proceeded with the inheritance process. After returning home, I laid out the documents I got from the lawyer on my desk and started reading them. I was so tired that I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a bit. When I woke up, I heard Bob and his mother talking happily in the distance. Bob and Mom too. "When did you come?" I asked as I got up. Bob came over with a big smile and said, "Yes, Elena, well done," confused by his sudden excitement. I noticed the inheritance papers in Bob's hand. "Wait, don't just read those without asking." I was shocked and upset that Bob had looked through the documents without permission. I raised my voice at him, but my mother-in-law, not bothered at all, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $5 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused, I couldn't understand why she would say that so suddenly. Then Bob turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $5 million. I've decided it will be split between me and my mom." It was right after my father's funeral. Bob, having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, said to me, "Elena, don't be too greedy. Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man you are talking about, my dad," I accidentally said out loud. "Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible," Bob said, ignoring my confusion. At that moment, Bob and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and shopping. I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding, being burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off they insulted my father while holding back my anger. I replied with a forced smile, "Sure, use the money, you and my mother-in-law." "As you wish." Hearing this, my mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, cheerfully said, "That's the spirit. Elena is quick to agree now. Make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to go down, so work hard," she said. I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. After that, Bob and my mother-in-law started spending money like crazy. Bob quit his job quickly, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house all the time. They would leave in the morning and come back with expensive brand items. The 5-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected. Yes, it was a bit disappointing for us, the sophisticated ones, they would say, acting like they were rich celebrities and dumping all the housework on me. As if I were a maid, Bob seemed to think my father's inheritance would be available right away. He carelessly withdrew money from our jointed account, and my savings of $300,000 dwindled rapidly. When I complained about their excessive spending, Bob just laughed it off, saying, "What are you talking about? Isn't $5 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal." I warned him I had already stopped it, but Bob completely ignored me. Then a month later, Bob and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Bermuda. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door, wondering what was happening. I glanced at the intercom monitor and saw Bob and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. What do you want?" I asked calmly and coldly with anger. Bob yelled, "What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open?" Seeing Bob and my mother-in-law confused as to why the door wouldn't open, I confidently answered through the intercom, "Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open." "What? Why?" Bob exclaimed. "Let's talk over this calmly at the nearby cafe." "Please go ahead. I'll join you shortly," I suggested. Bob and his mother, after shouting in front of the entrance, seemingly realized it was full, and soon headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I felt a moment of relief. I went to the cafe and saw Bob and his mother already there waiting angrily. "Hey, what's this about? Did you change the locks and hand over the new keys right now?" Bob demanded. "There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house," I calmly told Bob and his mother, facing a visibly angry Bob. I showed him a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition. I had already filed out divorce. "You're serious about divorcing me?" His mother was equally shocked and confused. "Elena, why has it come to this?" I spoke quietly to the two of them, who were panicking and flustered with the way you've been spending money every day. "Are you sure your finances are okay?" "What money? Of course it's fine," Bob snapped back, spitting as he spoke. "Your father's inheritance is coming right. There should still be over $100,000 in our jointed account. Look, I'll show you right now." Saying this, Bob took out his smartphone and opened the banking app to check the account. Suddenly, his expression changed. "What's this? Why is the money gone?" "It was there just the other day," Bob exclaimed. Hearing Bob's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. "Of course, it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so." I moved that $100,000 to my account as part of the property division. "What do you mean?" Bob's face turned to anger for a moment. But then he smirked as if remembering something. "Fine, I'll divorce to then transfer. The inheritance you got from your dad right away, after all property acquired during the marriage, is split half and half in a divorce right." "Well, you might be misunderstanding something," I replied. "Didn't you know the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division?" There was a moment of silence between us. Then Bob and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was utterly shocked and could only sigh in disbelief at the unfolding situation. "No, that can't be true," I muttered under my breath. But the truth of the matter was glaringly clear. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. "Please check for yourself," I said with a mocking tone that I couldn't quite mask. Bob immediately started frantically searching on his smartphone, desperate to prove me wrong as he scrolled through the legal texts online, and his face fell. What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day," Bob exclaimed. Hearing Bob's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. "Of course, it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $100,000 to my account as part of the property division." "What do you mean?" Bob's face turned to anger for a moment. But then he smirked as if remembering something. "Fine, I'll divorce to then transfer. The inheritance you got from your dad right away, after all property acquired during the marriage, is split half and half in a divorce right." "Well, you might be misunderstanding something," I replied. "Didn't you know the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division?" There was a moment of silence between us. Then Bob and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was utterly shocked and could only sigh in disbelief at the unfolding situation. "No, that can't be true," I muttered under my breath. But the truth of the matter was glaringly clear. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. "Please check for yourself," I said with a mocking tone that I couldn't quite mask. Bob immediately started frantically searching on his smartphone, desperate to prove me wrong. As he scrolled through the legal texts online, his face fell. "It says here that property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses." His voice was tinged with disbelief. "What? Seriously?" His mother too peered over his shoulder, her expression turning to one of shock as the reality of the legal standing dawned on them. Then Bob approached me, his demeanor shifting to one of desperation. "Elena, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me?" His plea was laden with panic and fear. But I had seen too much and endured too much to be swayed by his sudden show of vulnerability. Facing Bob's pleading, I stood my ground, my voice firm and unwavering. "What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you and your mother treated me. I'm divorcing you, and I'll go to court if I have to." My declaration was clear, a line drawn firmly in the sand. Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, which they had never witnessed before, Bob and his mother recoiled. They shrunk back in fear, whimpering softly as they stood there, dejected and defeated. I knew I had finally taken a stand. The weight of my decision was heavy but necessary, as I sought to reclaim my dignity and future from the ruins of a marriage that had veered so far off the path I had once envisioned. After walking out of the cafe, the divorce proceedings between Bob and I proceeded without major obstacles. The $100,000 I had shifted from our joint account was acknowledged as part of the division of our marital assets. Over time, I managed to legally compel Bob and his mother to vacate my house. This was a relief, as Bob, having already squandered the money from our marital division, found himself in a precarious financial state. He was penniless and increasingly overwhelmed with a mountain of bills, stemming from lavish expenditures on their overseas trip and various other expenses charged to his credit cards. As Bob's financial troubles escalated, he sank deeper into debt. Both he and his mother were forced to take on additional loans just to keep up with their mounting bills. Eventually, they moved into a rundown apartment, a stark departure from their previous luxurious lifestyle. They now find themselves working exhaustively every day to manage their debts, a situation that has been a profound and shocking adjustment for both. Meanwhile, I took decisive steps to move forward with my life. I sold the condo that I once shared with Bob, a place full of mixed memories, and moved into the apartment that had belonged to my late father. This move was not just a change of scenery. It was a step towards reclaiming my independence and starting afresh on my own terms. In this new chapter of my life, I continued my work as before, maintaining the same job that had always given me a sense of stability and purpose. However, with the inheritance I received from my father, my financial situation became significantly more comfortable. This financial security has allowed me to live without the constant stress of monetary concerns that once plagued my marriage with Bob. Living in my father's apartment has brought a new sense of peace and continuity to my life. Every day, I wake up with a heart full of gratitude for the man who not only raised me with love, but also ensured that I would be secure after he was gone. This gratitude has inspired me to approach life with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. With the lessons learned from my troubled marriage, I am now more committed than ever to protecting my happiness and well-being. I've come to realize the importance of being surrounded by people who support and uplift me, rather than those who seek to take advantage. As I move forward, I am determined to cherish and make the most out of every moment, focusing on personal growth and happiness. As the days pass, I find myself more at ease, enjoying a life that is not just about survival, but about thriving. My days are spent peacefully indulging in small joys and planning for a future that I now look forward to with optimism and excitement. The stark contrast between my life now and the life I shared with Bob serves as a constant reminder of how far I've come and how much I've achieved on my own.